Hello, everybody. So I just wanted to give you a relatively quick update. As you can see, I am now back in Canada for my trip to Washington, D.C. All in all, I had a great time, saw a lot of cool stuff. Maybe I'll do a stream talking about some of that later. As you can hear, Rain really missed me. So I just wanted to cover some of the stuff that's been going on while I've been out of Dodge. So basically, as with everything in this war, I coined the term very early on in this conflict called Schrodinger's war, with reference to Schrodinger's cat. Don't worry, Rain, I'm not going to shoot you. But because it seems like a lot of stuff happens and nothing happens at the same time. And this is kind of a constant theme. And we're currently in Schrodinger's negotiations because negotiations are happening, but they're also not happening at all. So I'm just going to try to summarize it. I don't have a bunch of articles together because the minutia is just really lame. Okay, so let's talk about what's been going on. So we had the big Riyadh negotiations are happening. Sorry, between the Americans and the Russians, and the Ukrainians were there. From my understanding, the Russians and Americans had a 12-hour long meeting. The Americans and the Ukrainians had a 40-minute long meeting, which I think is kind of an explanation of where the priorities are. So before that, we had a call between Trump and Putin, and they came up with this ceasefire that didn't really make any sense. So the ceasefire was like a partial ceasefire that only covered energy infrastructure and maybe some other stuff. It was very unclear. And then it was immediately breached. Now, I don't have the article in front of me, but the Ukrainians claimed that Russia did a false flag and attacked their own energy infrastructure, which I'm going to have to press X to doubt. The whole energy infrastructure ceasefire very much is kind of to Russia's benefit anyways, because I mean Russia's already destroyed all of Ukraine's energy infrastructure other than the nuclear power plants, of course. So really it's just they don't really have anything to shoot at. Also in the meantime, Russia can build up its long-range missiles, and it can launch them basically as soon as the ceasefire's over. So the ceasefire didn't really go anywhere. It just basically immediately ended. No one really understood what it even was. So that was ceasefire 1. But we had the big meeting in Riyadh. We're back. We're going to have the ceasefire take 2. And the ceasefire take 2 is basically nothing. We're going to bring the grain deal back because everyone remembers the grain deal. And it's going to be a pause on conflict within the Black Sea. And there's going to be agreement to not attack civilian shipping. Now, has Russia been attacking civilian shipping at any point during this conflict? Not really. They haven't really, I think, done anything other than just blowing up ports to get in the way of commercial traffic. Sorry, there's an issue with my audio. Okay, anyways, I'm just going to keep going. If there's some issue cutting out, let me know. Yeah. I'll get to DC in a bit. I just want to finish covering the updates. So the agreement that the U.S. and Russia reached was that Russia was going to continue not attacking civilian ships. They were going to get a bunch of sanction relief, particularly they're going to be allowed to use SWIFT for agricultural and fertilizer exports. Some of their banks were going to get unsanctioned, and they were going to implement a system of inspecting the incoming civilian ships so that the incoming civilian ships, so that they would be they can ensure that there aren't any weapons aboard them, because apparently Ukraine was smuggling in a bunch of weapons aboard the civilian ships. Turkey was supposed to, Turkey was supposed to be doing it, but Erdogan's a snake and he didn't actually search any of the ships. So the Americans and Russians agreed to that. The Ukrainians didn't agree to that. The Europeans said there's no way we're going to agree to any of this. These sanctions will never be lifted. In fact, we need more sanctions. So the second peace deal or ceasefire immediately just went nowhere, and that's where we're at. So we have Starmer, who's still like wants the Avengers, and he's like obsessed with it. I mean, they keep raising the stakes. Like Macron and the UK are like, we're just going to, even if America's not backing us up, we're just going to send our guys to Ukraine. Even if America says that you're on your own, Article 5 doesn't cover this, you do this, then just go, you're screwed. We're going to do it anyways. And Starmer's like, yeah. So the coalition of the willing, to my understanding at this point, is the UK, Denmark, I think the Baltic states, although Starmer forgot to invite them to the Avengers meeting, and France, depending on how Macron feels on that particular day. Italy is sort of part of the coalition of the willing, but they really, really don't want to be. So Maloney just keeps giving like vague weirdo statements to try to sabotage their role in it. So that's the coalition of the willing. It's Starmer's attempt to organize the Avengers. It's going basically nowhere. It's a mess. But that's Keir Starmer. We did, however, let me just bring this up. Starmer did announce a ban on ninja swords. So let me just pull that up. White supremacist Keir Stormfront. Will I pull that up? Let me see here. Yeah, so that's basically going nowhere. That entire thing was just a total disaster. But they keep talking about it. I think Putin is in kind of a dilemma. And I mentioned that in kind of the title of this stream. The issue is for international relations purposes, he has to be pro-peace. He has to say, look, we're always willing to negotiate. We're willing to have a ceasefire. We're willing to sit down and talk with the Americans, with the Ukrainians, with all these different people. And he has to maintain that. He has to keep saying that even if he really doesn't want that to happen. Also, Trump is throwing him a bone. After the Biden years and the first Trump presidency where he got impeached over Russiagate and Obama and all that stuff, Trump is playing ball. Trump is calling him. He's trying to make some deals with him. Let's see here. Let me just put this. Okay, so this is Keir Starmer. This is not a joke. So this is the solution that the UK has come up with to deal with their rampant crime problems. Confirmed ninja swords will be banned by this summer. When we promise action, we take it. So Yes, that is not a joke. Kier Starmer posted that. I don't even really know what a ninja sword is. Is that like a ninjato? Is that a katana? Is that a wakizashi? I don't even. What is a ninja sword? I guess a ninjato? Maybe a tanto? I don't know. It's just a ninja sword. I have no idea what that even means. You should ban ninjas. So this is the plan. Rather than arresting people who are committing crimes and stabbing people and running rape gangs and stuff like that, they've decided that this is the goal. That we're going to ban the ninja swords, and that's going to fix everything. I know in Manitoba, where I live, they're going to ban machetes because the diversity keeps killing each other with them, and they think that that is the solution rather than reducing immigration or just locking up people. I was watching, if you guys haven't watched it, sorry, we'll get back to the main thing, but this is kind of related. Lotus Eaters, which is Sargon's podcast that he does now with like his team of guys on YouTube. I recommend it. Sargon, it's really well put together, and I enjoy it. Like I said, we have the Sargon redemption arc. He took the dad pill, and now Sargon's pretty much good on almost every issue. But he showed this clip on it of they were like in a 3-story mall, and some youth or teen on the 3rd story just grabbed a like couch from a furniture store and threw it from the 3rd floor, and it just smashed into the atrium. So, and then that guy, of course, didn't get arrested, and I mean, Sargon pointed out like that could have very easily. I hope I'm giving like a. I hope people understand like how I'm describing it, but that guy could have very easily killed someone if that had have hit them. But that kind of behavior is just okay. We can't arrest those people, but we can arrest people for having ninja swords, whatever that means. We do, however, have another negotiations that's going on. Bukele is going to go to meet with Trump, and he's going to bring Diet Coke with him. So I find it funny that like Bukele could solve the mystery that like Scooby-Doo couldn't solve. He's like, how do we deal with violent criminals? He's like, let's just lock all the violent criminals up. And it worked. Imagine that. Let's just lock all the cartel guys up. So that's the plan. Okay, so let's see here. How bad is the diversity in Manitoba? I don't want to get into this too much, but it's not uncommon because I work in a couple different offices. In one of the offices, of the 7 people in most of the meetings, 2 are white, and the other woman is the only other person who speaks English, like in a coherent manner. So most of it is just kind of me sitting there while people like mumble in Indian accents. Buses are full of it. I've seen the diversity a couple times when I'm going to get milk or something like that, or I was going to get some like work clothes. Just run in, grab stuff, and leave. So that is what Manitoba. Okay, hopefully that's a bit better. So this is a meme someone came out with. A young King Arthur, moments before being imprisoned for life for possession of a blade weapon. The thing is that this isn't even a parody. Like if King Arthur pulled the sword from the stone in modern Britain, he would get a life sentence, for having a sword. That's how it is these days. So Anyways, so Starmer's trying to do that. He's like, we're gonna send the guys to Ukraine. Um, Jake Snake says, I live in the East Coast and the diversity is everywhere. None of them speak coherent English. Yeah, we like it's, dude. It's bad. It's really bad. And almost all of them are from India and have come here in like the last like 4 years or something like that. It makes me miss the Chinese like a lot. Anyways, okay, just get back to what we were talking about with regards to. Yeah, so that's what Starmer's doing. So, yeah, like I said, so Putin's in this difficult scenario wherein Trump is playing ball, Trump is trying to lift the sanctions, Trump is trying to make deals with him. He has to try to play along because he's having a bone thrown at him. So Putin's been trying to flatter Trump a bit. He says he considers him his friend. I don't have a picture of it, but he sent him a. They sent him a like a portrait that he had painted by one of Russia's leading artists. Trump was apparently very touched by it, and so, like, Putin's not particularly interested in a lot of what the U.S. is offering, but because it's largely done in what he sees as good faith, and he can't really throw Trump under the bus if Trump is trying to like reach out and actually like help him. We have this really awkward scenario where we have the U.S. trying to negotiate a peace, and Ukraine has said we will never accept any of the peace terms, and Russia's like, yeah, we'll look at that. And they're basically just kind of delay until Ukraine torpedoes whatever it's going to be. And Europe is talking about how they're going to send the Avengers into Ukraine to trigger Article 5. So, what does this all mean? What is this mess? So let me just kind of give like an overview of where I think everybody is at the moment. I think Trump thought that this was going to be easy. I think he thought that Biden was incompetent, had dementia, had no idea what he was doing. He was going to come in, he was going to sit down Putin and Zelensky, and he was going to work this out. He was just going to basically threaten and bully Zelensky into accepting a deal, and he was hopefully going to be able to charm Putin or work with Putin or come up with something. But I think he wanted this done. He wanted it to not go on very long. I don't think Trump is particularly interested in Ukraine in the sense of it being a long-term part of his term in office. I think he thought that, okay, the main barrier was Biden not talking to Putin. If I talk to Putin, then we'll be able to work stuff out. And if you notice, they've been trying to move very quickly on this. They've been trying to get full ceasefires. They've been trying to get partial ceasefires. They've been trying to get sanctions lifted. You have just all this stuff going on, and they've been pushing very hard, very fast. And I think Trump is realizing that this whole thing is a lot more complicated than he initially thought it was going to be. And he's just not going to be able to immediately figure this out. Because even if he wanted to accept Putin's offer, which I think largely his negotiation team has come to the conclusion that's all they can do, the Ukrainian government won't, and the Europeans won't. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I would not be surprised if Trump just loses interest in this whole thing and just kind of puts it on the back burner to go deal with some other stuff. But I think that Trump vastly underestimated how difficult this would be. I think he was correct in thinking that a lot of this was Biden's fault, And I do think if he had been president, this war probably would not have happened. But the war did happen, and yeah, I don't see how he's going to deal with it. So that's where I think they are. I think there's a lot of there's some dysentery in the ranks with regards to the government. There's the people who want peace with Russia on just about any terms. They don't really care about Ukraine. They just want this thing to end. You have the people who still think that we can get some sort of conflict freeze or some sort of conflict freeze or I don't know, temporary ceasefire, or maybe like we can have Ukraine join NATO in 20 years. Zelensky said his new plan is to wait for Putin to die, and then they'll just get all the territory back. I don't think they understand that Putin is a very moderate figure in Russia, and faces a lot of criticism for being willing to accept the terms that he's willing to accept. And if really anyone is going to overthrow Putin in Russia, it's not the liberals, it's the ultranationalists. But so yeah, so the U.S. is just kind of stuck. I don't think they really know what to do at this point in time. It's kind of a quagmire, and like I said, like Putin wants to try to go along with this, even if he thinks it's nonsense. If Trump comes up with something and Trump tries to come up with a business deal, he's kind of obligated to go, yeah, Donald, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm on board with that. You just run that by the Ukrainians. And yeah, so I think that's where Trump's at the moment. I don't really think they know what they're doing. I think they vastly underestimated what was going to go on. And they're trying to solve this massive problem very quickly. And like I said, there's some people who want to end this war so that they can deal with the Middle East. There's people who want to end this war because they want to deal with China. Because keep in mind, there's an anti-Russia and an anti-China faction within the State Department. And under Biden, the anti-Russia faction was ascendant. Under Trump, the anti-China faction's ascendant. For what it's worth, I tend to support. I tend to be a lot more aligned with the anti-China faction, but that's just me. So yeah, that whole thing is just, I don't know where it's going, but I think that is what the state of things is. Some people, like real American politics, started to criticize Trump and said that he's spending too much time on Ukraine and this is going to be a quagmire and it's going to sink his second term because this is going nowhere. So we'll see how it goes. Also, part of the anti-China faction, just going off of what Jake Snake is saying, is a lot of them were against conflict with Russia because they thought that they could keep Russia and China divided, and that they could kind of play them off against each other as their historical rivals. And this is kind of what some people, I think Mearsheimer is kind of like this, where there are people who argued if we integrate Russia into like the collective West, and then they won't go with China, and maybe we can keep them from what wound up happening with the really close alliance. So I think where Putin's at the moment is, I think he's just like, this whole thing is just bullshit. These guys are clowns. This is never like, it's a waste of time. There's never going to be peace negotiations. I think Putin is just leaning towards, we're just going to end this militarily. As I've said, I think that the Ukrainian army will collapse by the end of summer. That is my prediction. That is the prediction that Budanov had. I was saying it before he did, but that is what the director of Ukraine's military intelligence said, that they had about 6 months. and he said that a couple months ago. So I think end of August probably. So I think Putin's just like, these guys are tools. The EU is never going to negotiate. Zelensky's never going to negotiate. Trump is well intentioned but doesn't really know what he's doing. So we're just going to end this militarily. I think what they'll probably do is maybe, like, once again, I don't know if Putin really knows what he wants to do. I think they're increasingly leaning towards taking the Black Sea coast, setting up a client regime in what's left of Ukraine, and just having them as a satellite state or something like that. Putin suggested that Ukraine be placed under UN control while things are resolved, but I'm starting to think that that's probably what Putin's going to do. Or we might have a scenario where Ukraine is divided into three. We have like a central Ukrainian government that's pro-Russian. We have like a Western Ukrainian government that's pro-NATO. And then the various territories get annexed. I kind of feel like he's increasingly going in that direction. And he's just tired of dealing with the Europeans and their nonsense. Once again, I think it's important to note that the Russians feel an extremely deep sense of betrayal over Minsk and Istanbul and all that kind of stuff. Now, to be fair to the Russians, regardless of what you think about them, and I do think there was definitely, for my part, I think there probably was a bit of an imperialist, revanchist element to this whole thing. But these agreements were made, and Merkel and Macron and Hollande and Boris Johnson have come out and said, look, we never intended to honor any of these agreements. The whole goal was just to trick Russia into backing off so we could arm Ukraine and to give us some breathing room. So that's another part of the problem is Putin is, I think, understandably going, okay, so who would we make do we trust Starmer? Do we trust Macron? Do we trust the losers that control Ursula von der Leyen? Ursula von der Leyen, or whoever. He thinks he can do like a deal with Trump, but also there's the issue: what if Kamala or Gavin Newsom or AOC or I don't know, some neocon Republican wins next time and they go back on everything? Trump doesn't have the votes in the Senate to pass an actual treaty. It's going to be this this Mickey Mouse agreement that doesn't actually get ratified. And I think he's just like, fuck it, we're just going to go and finish it militarily. But to appease his various partners in the global south, like China, he has to just, whenever a negotiation proposal comes up, he has to kind of take it. So I think that's where he's at. As I've said regarding Zelensky, and we'll just go over his perspective, there is no benefit to Zelensky to negotiations. There is no benefit to Zelensky for ending this war. So long as this war keeps going and the aid money keeps flowing, him and his friends are able to divert large amounts of it. As Alex Christoforou put it, to buy many homes. To buy many homes in Florida or Paris or London or whatever. So there's that aspect of it. Also, if there's any kind of pause in the conflict, there will be an election in Ukraine that Zelensky will almost certainly lose. So even if everything goes right, he's still going to lose power and he's going to lose access to the grift. The other scenario is the ultranationalists will just kill him. If he starts a legitimate peace deal tries to negotiate with Russia, the ultranationalists will just kill him and replace him with someone more radical. I don't know, like Zelensky or someone else. So that's kind of the other issue. And as I've said, there's really no pro-peace faction in Ukraine. There's like the pro-war faction, there's the dissident pro-war faction, and then there's the ultranationalists. And that's about it. And Zelensky has built a very powerful national security state that is extremely efficient at eliminating dissent. And more or less just all opposition has just been banned. He's been very effective in doing that, or sending them into, I don't know, just various locations. So that's kind of the scenario where we are with the negotiations. The UK and the coalition of the willing continue to insist that the only acceptable terms is that Russia unilaterally and unconditionally withdraws from all of Ukraine, and that is their peace offer. There's no other peace offer. There's no negotiations. That's the precondition from negotiations, that the UK just that Russia just withdraws from everything. So that is, I think, largely where we are at. Well, the reason why Zelensky, I think Putin's been asked, why haven't you taken Zelensky out? And it's like, well, then somebody more competent would take over. Like, Zelensky is helping, is helpful to them. So why would they take him out? So Jake Snake says, why is Trump a pro-Russia fascist for trying to end this war? I hear this everywhere. So the term fascist doesn't really mean anything. I've done multiple episodes of Is It Fascist with regards to the whole Trump thing. So the idea that Trump and MAGA is fascist is based on the unique charisma of Donald Trump. Donald Trump just has a unique charisma, a unique kind of cult of personality, a unique charm or whatever, magnetism to him, that makes the whole movement very personalist and very directly kind of based around him. And that is something you do see in a lot of totalitarian governments, where you do have this charismatic leader who embodies the will of the nation. However, I don't think that is necessarily inherent to the ideas that Trump represents. As I said, in order for something to be fascist, I think it has to be a mixture of like progressive revolutionary ideas and conservative reactionary ones. Nothing really about Trump is actually very revolutionary. Like, conservative populism is pretty normal. Tariffs are a historical thing in the American conservative movement. Civic nationalism is common. Isolationism is common. Like, none of these things are like radical, crazy ideas that don't really have any basis in American political history. So that is lacking. The other main thing that is lacking is statism. Probably the single most important aspect of fascism is worship, or is the centrality of the state, and a desire to equate the state with the nation, and that the state must be obeyed and built up. What was Mussolini's expression? Nothing above the state, nothing outside the state, something like that. And like the Trump, like MAGA isn't statist. I mean, people are calling the fact that Trump is dismantling the federal government is fascist somehow. somehow dramatically reducing the administrative state is fascist. I mean, we have that. We also have the Republicans support free speech, less censorship, gun rights, lower taxes, stuff like that. A key part of what I would consider to be fascism is the sublimation of individual rights into the collective or into the state. So, like, we have stuff like that. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you actually look at it from any kind of angle, like, and try to actually analyze what MAGA wants, aside from the unique charisma of Donald Trump, which does, I admit, which I do admit does kind of bear some resemblance to some fascist leaders of the past, the political program is very much like not at all in line with the kind of things you would see in a fascist government at all. Osaka says, did you see the poll that says only boomers are the only age group supporting liberals? Do you mean that in Canada or in the United States? Because I do know in the U.S., Zoomers are swinging pretty right-wing from what I've heard. They've swung quite a bit rightward. So, whereas I think the Democrat Party's main base in this point in time is like boomers, which is weird because traditionally the older people support the conservatives. Okay, yes, in Canada, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. So, but yeah, Zoomer men have just swung like really far to the right, at least in the United States. Jake Snake, I think Canada's screwed. There's a massive difference. Like, yeah, there's a huge difference. As as somebody, I think it was actually Fuentes who said this. Men have the monopoly on the use of violence, and whatever power women have is only what men give them. So, just keep that in mind whenever we're talking about these massive gender divides. That's just always something to keep in mind. But yeah, so I think that's largely where we are with regards to the war. I think it's just going to be Putin trying to bulldoze. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I'll stay on for a little bit longer. I'll talk maybe a bit about my trip to DC. I just wanted to get that out of the way before we digressed too much. So yeah, I went to DC. I had a fun time there. It is, and I'm going to do a video on this. It was kind of blackpilling in a lot of ways. Because the last time I'd been to DC, I think was like 15 to 20 years ago or something like that. And I've been to a lot of these museums before, and it's kind of amazing how radically everything's changed over the last couple of years. Like basically all the descriptions and stuff had got rewritten. Yeah, all the descriptions have been rewritten. In the Air and Space Museum, there's bilingualism in some of it. Now there's like Spanish and English. Basically every single exhibit has like a thing about how minorities contributed to this, or more or less how this thing oppressed minorities or something like that. I'm just going to show you. So the best museum in DC Argent will never say anything about feminism. I talk about feminism. I don't know, like, what is it you want me to say about it? Um, I mean, that's partially that's just not my main area of focus, but I don't really know what you want me to say about it that I haven't said. So the National Portrait Gallery is probably the best museum in DC. So this has all the historic portraits. This is where all the presidential portraits, official presidential portraits, are kept. If you've seen, like, if you go to Wikipedia and you see the like image they have for historical figure, it's probably in the National Portrait Gallery. It's really cool. So I just want to read this. So this is from the Portrait Gallery. This is for the earlier part. Since its opening in this is cringe. I'm just going to warn you guys. This is cringe. Since 1968, the National Portrait Gallery has focused on exhibiting portraits. Out of many portraits from 1600 to 1900 includes portraits of indigenous Americans, European colonists, clergymen. I like how they just have to say European colonists now. Okay. Who helped shape the country. A permanent exhibition dedicated to America's presidents is located on the second floor. Let's see here. Well, the galleries on the third floor highlight portraits of Americans who have lived in the 20th and 21st centuries. While visiting the first floors, you will find that the portraits of wealthy, powerful people greatly outnumber those without such status. There are more images of men than of women, and more pictures of people of European descent than those of other backgrounds. The National Portrait Gallery acknowledges this imbalance and is constantly striving to diversify its collection in order to present a more comprehensive story of our nation. So we encourage you to consider the lives of these complex subjects. So, like, if you go through and you start looking at, for John C. Calhoun's, they just say white supremacist now. If they're dealing with anyone from the South, every single nameplate is about slavery or gay rights or stuff like that. Literally just everything is directly related to that. Let me see. I'll maybe do that. Okay, so they allowed the Atlantic to write all of the to rewrite all of the stuff in the museum. So all of the entries in it, they allowed the Atlantic to do. They didn't try to get an academic historian. They just got a left-wing organization to do it. So let me see here. I took some pictures of some of these, so I'm just gonna post them. But it's bad. This was probably. I don't know if this is the worst though. Oh, okay. We have the most nose off, the most noses exposed thing ever. Okay, so I'm gonna put this up. So this is from the end. This is oh no, was that it? No, is it this one? Oh. Okay, this is the most mask off, noses exposed thing I think I've ever seen. Literal noses exposed. 1 second. I'm just trying to send these things to myself. These size limits are really obnoxious on emails. It's 2025. Why is it still 15 megabyte limit? Oh, well, I'll just have to send it in multiple ones. Boomer Argent. Okay, so let's just read this. Okay, so when the gallery opened, 17% of the objects in our collection were made by or portrayed women. Today, that number has doubled. The recently acquired artworks display here signal the museum's ongoing commitment to highlighting women's accomplishments. Although we have made progress towards more equitable representation, there is still more work to be done. Over the past 6 decades, the portrait gallery has broadened the parameters of who it represents. I like how it literally says we reduced the standards for them to be in here in order to put them. So there's like a portrait of Beyonce now there. Has broadened the parameters of who it represents and how. In 2001, we began collecting portraits of living subjects, and in 2008, we expanded our definition of portraiture to include video and film, which is very gay. I mean, it's supposed to be the portrait gallery. It's not supposed to be Beyonce is, I don't know, twerking in a music video. It's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be like pictures of Andrew, like paintings. But we just have to do that now because everything has to be fake and gay. Here is the mask off, nose is exposed. From the studio to the synagogue, the dark room to the courtroom, the people represented by these. I like how it just says the studio to the synagogue. I bet it's the synagogue. Let's see here. I posted some other stuff of this. Okay, here we go. I'll just go through the ones that I have. By the way, I've been playing Ender Magnolia. If anyone is interested in like a good Metroidvania game, Ender Magnolia is actually really good. I'm having a lot of fun playing it. Okay. For much of the 19th century... Okay, so this is from Territorial Identity. The United States pursued the goal of exploring, settling, and governing the West Country. Many commentators expressed the belief that the United States was divinely proclaimed to advance westward to the sea and become a continental nation. Faith in this manifest destiny prompted aggressive expansionist policies that often led to violence, rather by armed conflict, involuntary expulsion, or treaty. Indigenous communities endured forced migrations and dispossessions of ancestral lands. Through a bloody war with Mexico over Texan independence, the United States gained immense tracts of land stretching the Pacific Ocean. These came with consequences to the disputed status of slavery. So it just has to be like everything portrayed in the most negative way possible. Not, yeah, we beat Mexico and we doubled the size of the country. I mean, as I said, in this household, James K. Polk is a hero. End of story. Let's see here. Cultural identity. This one is good. After gaining political independence, the United States began the work of developing an independent culture. Okay, several of the people whose portraits are shown here drew inspiration from the natural scenery of North America. Let's see here. In imaginative poems, plays, short stories, and paintings, they mythologize the landscape as an untamed wilderness, ignoring thousands of years of cultivation by indigenous communities. Furthermore, by transforming troubled facts into fanciful legends, they romanticize European colonists, exploitative history with native peoples, regional differences in the manners Yeah, so regional differences in the manners, customs, and language of the Northeast, South, and West infused many of those works, as did democratic values such as individual optimism, and vitality. These creative and intellectual achievements helped to define the distinctive features of the United States and reinforce the popular myth of American exceptionalism. So we have that. What is this? Okay, some more stuff. Go Ahead Nation. In the decades after 1820, let's see here. Among the white male population, the ideals of democracy and egalitarianism became a leveling force. Andrew Jackson ran for president as a political outsider. Let's see. Jackson approved the Indian Removal Act. Okay, so enslaved population exploded. Okay, let me just send some more of these. The myth of American exception. Like, once again, if I was writing this, I just would not write it in that way. I'd say the concept of American exceptionalism or the belief in American exceptionalism. I would not say that. I don't think it's appropriate, to be honest. But that's just me, and I might just be a pussy or something. Okay, I have some more I'm gonna send in here. Let me see what else I have. Like, it's written like Reddit. Like, it's snarky and passive aggressive and feminine. It's like, it ignored thousands of years of indigenous people doing things on the land. It's here's the thing I never get. So, how are the Norse not indigenous to Iceland? How are the English not indigenous to St. Helena? How are Europeans not indigenous to Europe? Like, there's as far as we can determine, no one had ever been to St. Helena before the English were there. Okay, let's see here. So we have an innovation in industry. So let's see here. Yet money funding these vendors were often acquired through unfair labor practices. Although their efforts often... workers in farms, mines, and factories fought for improved conditions, although their efforts often discriminated against women, African Americans, and certain immigrant groups. So we have to just insert that into literally everything. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay. Reconstruction, the second founding of the United States. Because Reconstruction was awesome, wasn't it? It was awesome. Yeah. By the way, I don't agree with what Jackson did. I think it was wrong for him to steal land, the Cherokees' land, and do the Trail of Tears. I just think that this stuff is gay. Okay, so here we go. After the Civil War, national leaders began the process of reforming and reconciling the divided nation. Let's see here. I'm just looking through here. United States citizenship, a birthright citizenship. Here we go. And granting all men the right to vote. Former Confederate states were readmitted into the Union, and for the first time, black men held elected positions in Southern state legislators, local offices, and Congress. Many former Confederate state governments enacted biased laws that established systems like sharecropping and convict leasing, which replicated many of the conditions of enslavement. Between 1865 and 1877, violent mobs and vigilantes, such as the KKK, lynched over 2,000 uh, black Americans. When in 1877 the federal government agreed to remove troops from the South as part of a political compromise. It's interesting if you I don't think I took a picture of it, but it said something about like the first state being readmitted, or like no states were readmitted until after the war. But I was pretty sure it wasn't Mississippi. Was it Mississippi or Louisiana that was readmitted into the Union very early in the war? Because they captured the Union captured New Orleans and like a buffer area around it, and it was readmitted into the Union. But so I think they actually got some stuff wrong. Okay, so let's look at what they have for Thomas. This is next to Thomas Jefferson's portrait. So Thomas Jefferson, during his presidency, the nation bought the Louisiana Purchase. Although Jefferson once called slavery an abominable crime, he consistently enslaved African Americans, including his late wife Martha's half-sister, Sally Hemings, with whom he had several children. They're just posting like the unproven historical meme. I like how consistently enslaved. Like, I just like how they don't even try to write this in a scholarly historical perspective. Like, if I was writing this, I would say, although Jefferson once called slavery an abominable crime, he owned slaves throughout the entirety of his life, reflecting a hypocrisy and apparent in many founding fathers, or something like that. But my understanding is the Sally Hemings thing is like a rumor. It's just like a myth. Let's see here. The one for Reagan makes Reagan sound way more base than he was. Okay, Reagan encouraged a conservative social ethic regarding, that's such a weird way to put it, religion in public life and reproductive rights. Was Reagan even like pro-life? Did he do anything like with regards to that? His conservative stance led him to ignore the AIDS crisis. So, yeah, it's his fault. AIDS is Reagan's fault. AIDS is Reagan's fault. Let's see here. What else do we have? I don't know if I took John C. Calhoun, because they really shit on him. Like, they massively just shit on him. So a funny thing at the Museum of the Bible is, so in most parts of the museum they use AD and BC. Because you'd think if anywhere would use AD and BC, it would be Museum of the Bible. There is one exhibit in which used, and that is because the exhibit is sponsored by the Israeli government. So I guess they just decided to do that. Everywhere else uses AD and BC, as they should. The year of our Lord. If you want to come up with a better calendar than the, I believe it was the Jesuits came up with, then be my guest. If you want to do that, then you get to name the years. So, let's see here. There's some other cringe I got. I'll have to post a thing of the. I have like a thing of the Bible museum recorded that I'm gonna put up at some point in time. I should have taken more pictures of the cringe, but I just kind of didn't. I think I was just like in a hurry, or I was just trying to largely enjoy my vacation, and this stuff just kind of kept popping up and interrupting me whenever I was trying to do stuff. Let's see here. By the way, if you ever get the chance to go to Our Lady of the Immaculate Conception, I think it's called the church in Washington D.C. It is incredible. It is massive. It is one of the biggest. I think it's the biggest church in North America. It's bigger than a lot of the churches that I've seen in Europe when I've been there. So let's see here. Oh, did I send those? I guess I sent those. Okay, we of course have. I forget where this was. Oh, this was from the Museum of the Bible. We have to have George Washington Carver because he's there for literally everything. Okay, here we go. This was from the Air and Space Museum. Why only white male astronauts? NASA was never interested in accepting them. The first white American, female, or African American astronauts did not fly until 1983. So yeah, that's like literally what they have for that. Okay, and then we also have this is their this is what they had about the development of stuff in Florida. For African Americans living in Central Florida, the benefits of the missile and space boom were mixed. The area had been brutally segregated. Almost all the good jobs went to better educated white people, leaving janitorial and other low-level jobs for black people. But a few pioneering African American technicians and engineers did find employment. So here's what I like. So I guess what they're saying here is like for the people designing the rocket ships should not have had like degrees in rocketry and physics and stuff like that because because I don't know something because it's racist to have that. They should have just taken like random poor black people and given them jobs building space rockets. I guess that's what the thing is. So to end this off, we are going to have a couple moments of Zen. Let's see here. All right. So I went to the Washington National Zoo, and I got super lucky, and the pandas were out, and the pandas were acting. Were active. So we're gonna watch some panda videos to end this stream.
Hello, everybody. As you can see,
So there's one of the pandas. He's chowing down on bamboo. It's unusual to just see them this active, but look at that guy go. So they are adorable. Like, they may kind of be a genetic dead end and kind of a genetic loser creature, but they are adorable. Like I think we can all agree that pandas are adorable. They look like giant fluff balls. Look at them. Look at that guy go. I don't know, for whatever reason they also like look more anthropomorphic than other types of bears, at least in my reckoning. By the way, random Argent fact. Um, oh, did I? Oh shit. Okay, that's my bad. Okay, that was real boomer hours right there. That I forgot to delete all this stuff. Okay, well, okay. So let's go back and watch the pandas. There we go. There he is. So, Argent fact, bamboo is not a tree or a wood. It's actually a grass. Similar, it's the largest member of the grass family, which also includes all other grains like rice and corn and wheat and stuff like that. I think you can technically make flour out of bamboo. I just don't think it's particularly pleasant. And there's the other panda. And he's just chowing down. Look at that guy go. Oops. Yep, pandas showing their crotches. So this thing was up all over the place. District of Panda Party. So I guess it's like the Communist Party, but it's for pandas. It's like the communists, like pandas make China economy strong. Well, actually, they kind of do. Anyways, that's all. That's more than I actually wanted to cover, but people seem to be having fun, so I'm gonna head off to bed, guys. God bless, and